What's up, everyone? It's your boy Zero Brew coming back at you with another video. I drink bourbon and I know things. You can't hardly see the whole shirt, but I know things. And what things do I know? I might know a thing or two about why to build two champions. So I don't know. This is just a small little video that popped in my head today while I was sudsing it all up in the shower. And it reminds me of the old school like 80s and 90s Wrigley's double mint gum commercials, right? The double mint, whatever, I don't know. But why would you build more than one champion that's the exact same if you happen to get a duplicate versus plus oneing them or something like that? I've done it with several of them. I have some thoughts on that. And I will say, let's just talk about it and kind of my thoughts on it. And maybe some of this will translate to you and your accounts. I will say though, with the power creep in the game, so caveat, again, this will be your account and your account only. You know, I don't have champs that you have champs that I don't have, vice versa. And I'll also say what I may have built 2 years ago, for example, Uko, which you're not really seeing that on here, but I'll talk about that when I get to him, would have been amazing, but he's kind of been power crept in the game as well. But anyway, let's talk about it. Let's do all the things real quick. Click the link in my description to get a free Karato as well as Annex, Ugo, and Mausoleum Mage as you level up. Here's how to do it. Log out of Player and Play on a PC and uninstall. Click the link in my description and register with a brand new email. Launch raid and complete the tutorial. Go to your inbox and claim your first champion. Get an awesome start in Raid Shadow Legends with your free Karata Fox Hunter as well as 3 epic champions. Hit the link below and claim them today. I'll see you in the game. Woo! Okay, I'm totally shooting from the hip here, but I think probably the best way to find duplicates and in the legendaries is to go take a look at the guardians here. And you can see like I built one of the champions, but didn't build the other ones, right? So I would say for 95% or 98% of the champions in your game, that might be the case. Lysandra is good enough, but there's other champions that do what she kind of did. She's an older champion, for example, right? But there are a handful of champions that if you get more than one, you may want to consider doing a duplicate of them. Yeah, you can see right across the board, all these ones that aren't duped. But I will show you one that is duped. Boom, 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 Theodore, because I know right off the bat, Theodore up in that joint, and we'll talk about that as well. But this mainly also applies to epics too. So I would also say, and of course, we've now changed out our epics in this because we had the opportunity to commission these champions. But I will say, there are definitely some rares that you would do. So let's just start there and let's talk about that. Go to epics and then from epics, go to legendaries. Okay, with the rares, and I sorted these by name, but it's a no-brainer right there, right? The cold hearts. Some people obviously build 2. Multiple people build 3 or 4. I've seen a whole team of 5, but I will say early on in the very beginning of the game, I would say the first year of the game, this is the best way to take out the Fire Knight is to build out multiple cold hearts because she does have the 4 attack on the A1, the max HP hit. She's probably the best rare in the game. Also, she has the heal reduction as well. So absolutely a must go get. Also on the rare list, I have multiple soulbound bowlers. Now these are good in the rare only teams, and what you can do is kind of cheese those while using the stun set. And of course, remember stun set is 18% chance of landing. You don't need accuracy for this, and you really don't even need levels for this. But the soulbound bowlers, and I probably just had a million books. I don't even know why I booked them. Probably for the extra damage is why I booked them. But the soulbound bowler has an AoE on the A1, right? So if you bring 3 of those and you're AoEing with all 3 attacks with the sunsets, like hopefully you can basically stun out the whole wave and kind of cheese your way through some of that harder content. Harder because they force you to use rares. And that's really it in terms of the rares that I personally built. And again, keep in mind, you know, wherever you are in your account, you know, if you're a free-to-play player or a mid-game player or something like that, you may need to heavily rely on some of these rares more so than not. I will say too, me personally, I spent a lot of money early on in the game to kind of progress me faster. And so I didn't lean as heavily on the rares. This may not be your case, right? So feel free to lean on them. And then one of my favorite champions that is a rare out here just in general is Bellower. I would consider building multiple Bellowers because all 3 of their attacks are AoE. And then with the Nature's Bounty Blessing, it has a chance of changing these small debuff into the big debuffs, right? So these are the the smaller attack decrease and defense decrease. With that Nature's Bounty, it has a chance to being the big one as well. So Bellower would be a strongest contender. I've never had to do it with that, but you never know. With Faction Wars hard in the game, I've actually had to use my Bellower in the stun set. So you can potentially do the same strategy with Bellower that I was just talking about with the Soulbound Bowlers. Just a thought. Okay, so moving on to the rares, the epics. Get it right, Zero Brew. Moving on to the epics. Now, I will say the most bang for your buck are with these epics, right? So they did introduce empowerment, and this is why I had to sort these by faction, is because like if you get the +2 empowerment, like the Shamils aren't showing up together, where the Godseekers are showing up together, and it just helps me at least visualize the ones I've built multiple ones of. And I will say that Hydra is kind of the leading indicator as to kind of where some of these champions are. So Inquisitor Shamil, for example, is just an absolute beast when it comes to handling Hydra and the fear heads and all that with what he brings with his passive. So definitely built 2 of those to help out on that. And then probably I did the Geomancers as well. Where are my Geomancers? There they are. And luckily they're both +4. Now I will say just a little thing with these different champions. So we've got the one Geomancer and he had the 576 accuracy. He needed to have that higher accuracy on the Iron Twins originally. I think they did nerf the requirements on the Iron Twins, but I felt like it had to be like 550 plus. Yeah, this one's closer to 400, but this one's in a Relentless set. And so that's the other thing to consider building 2 champions of the same one is how do you, like, A, where you want to use them, B, can they help you in multiple areas of the game? And then C, would you build different gear sets? So we'll talk about that too as we keep going, because I certainly did that. But Relentless, again, trying to get as many turns as you can get. So this was built more for the Hydra. We did the regeneration one to help survive the Iron Twins with the super high accuracy on this Geomancer, for example, that kind of best displays that. But yeah, so the Godseekers, now I never used the second Godseeker, and this was one of the cheese ones where you needed to only land 2 books on the Rise of Glory to make this work for Sand Devil's Necropolis. And so we were able to land that one, but I never used it. I ended up building the cheese with Blizzard and not booking a non-booked Blizzard. And that's another little tip, you know, always book these champions right when you're absolutely sure, because there are some weird comps where it's like, okay, well, maybe you can do this if you don't land that. Blah, 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 blah. But anyway, Godseeker, one of the best epic champions in the game, just like Geomancer as well. Shamil is more niche, but an amazing champion as well for Hydra. So we built out multiple copies of him. The one that is my favorite, and by the way, I have multiple copies of Farrakhan because this Farrakhan is speed tuned very slow for my clan boss team at 177. And he's such a good ally attacker that he's worth building out a second one. I just never did do that. But Ugo, same thing with Ugo. Both of them are Relentless sets, but this is so that I can bring an Ugo in 2 different stages of the Hydra, right? Because Ugo is such a great champion for that. One of my favorite teams, and I've done a video on it, the Poison team, but the double Akentum here, and we've done a video on that. But this is amazing. First of all, both of them stun sets because of the passive that pops has a chance to also pop the stun when that triggers. But what's great about them, you can queue them up for the different waves, like Doom Tower waves, for example. And I might as well just run that real fast just to show you. But one can do the Hex, the other one can do the poisons, and then on the next wave, the other one could already have the Hex up, because this Akentum really works when there's Hex out there. So running dual Akentums just makes that team fly so much better. I'm trying to see, other than the Geomancers, are there any other ones I've done? Oh yes, can't forget about this one. One of the hardest hitting nukers for the Sylvan Watchers. And again, Sylvan Watchers is the latest faction in the game. And they're really lacking a lot of big hitters in that. If you don't have like the Void Allele, and he had to get a buff just to be relevant in the game. But the double Dithy here, you can see this, we've already got a +4 one and going to be working on the next one. And in fact, I was doing this in Curse City, and someone said, oh, how did you get past that stage in Curse City? And I said, oh, double Dithy. And that is, it's on hard, and I can't run it tonight, but I think it's stage, or actually will let me run, I forgot. S8. Yeah, the double Dithy run here just makes this run just because he's such a hard hitter and he brings the defense down in the AoEs. And you see, I've got one in Relentless, and I forgot what I have this one, but yeah, they're just cracking off extra turns. You see the double Dythes and how much they can get through this content. By the way, 2 level 50s on this team as well. So don't even care about the other champions on the team. It all comes down to what's his face here, Duodan, and then the double Dythes to get through this content. So great champion. And just to show this team off, so one of the Kentums don't do the Hex at all in round 1, and then open with it and leave it open on round 2 to do it as many times. And then this one, that's round 2, but round 1, again, don't do it again, and then don't ever use it in round 2 so that it has it when it starts in round 3. And then they're both, actually no, this one was turned off in A3 because I didn't need them both doing the hexes at the same time. So this is just a fun little team, and Doom Tower just reset. Also finally got the Arachnolix on the Cadillac, so these teams may die way too fast. I'm gonna be honest. About to find out, especially when Theodore goes and pops off so they just completely just get smoked. But it's a fun team, and that's another reason why to kind of do the double Akentums, because you can see that one setting up to get the hexes out, and then the hex blood. And I think, I'm gonna be honest, when these things start popping off, they're gonna die so fast with their Arachnolix. Yeah, 17,000 a pop. Yeah, they're just getting smoked. Anyway, it's a fun team. There you go. Okay, and then other thing that we should say, especially when we move on to the legendaries, obviously epic books are easier to come by. So to close out the epic piece, it's easier to build out multiple epics of the same factions. Again, with Faction Wars Hard, you might need them. Those Dythes, I know I showed that in the Curse City stage, but absolutely in Faction Wars Hard too, are strong carrying me. Now, when it comes to legendaries, books are a lot harder to come by. Couple things. One, it's okay to build 2 legendaries, but maybe obviously book your primary one and then maybe not book your secondary one unless you're absolutely sure that you want to do it. And again, I go back to what I said earlier, the game changes, there's power creep in the game. So you might build 2 legendary champions that helps you for a year, and then a year from now, with all the different changes in the game, they're no longer as relevant, or they're not as meta. They might not be the meta champions at the time, right? But let's just walk through the ones that I kind of did on this one. So, and there are just some champions, like, you know, if you got multiple Tarasas, like, go for it, right? And ones that I don't have because I've only pulled one of them. I only did the fusion, but G-Nut. If you have not seen how important G-Nut is, if you get 2, 3, sometimes 4 G-Nuts, they are so insane against bosses. So there are a lot of super fast comps that use 2 or 3 different G-Nuts. In fact, Kodos had that on his account that we kind of showcased as well. But let's get through it. Let's get to it. So just scrolling through my list, it only looks like I've only done this with 3 champions personally. And I know there are several champions I just never got the dupe for that I probably would consider, like I said, the G-Nut as the example. But the one that stands out is Uko. Where are you, mighty Uko? Again, I had to sort these by factions. And then it's weird because if you have different champ tags, they put other champions in between. I keep going between the rat. Sorry, Mighty Uko. So when Mighty Uko first came into the game, 2 things. First of all, his multi-hit on his A2 had an opportunity to double trigger, and that was a bug in the game. It was only meant to attempt to trigger a gear set once when you have multiple attacks, okay? So what do I mean by that? Well, he's in a provoke set, or excuse me, the curse set to land hex. So this is obviously my Hydra one. This is the one I used in Arena to get this stun set. So when he first came into the game, he was amazing in Arena. And I think it's been probably, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years since Uko came into the game, but landing the stun set. So what was happening at the time, for example, his A2, he does 2 attacks. And what was happening was that 18% chance was triggering on both attacks. So 18% on first attack, 18% on the second attack. Can you land the stun? And it made Ugo especially super OP. They fixed that in the game, so that did kind of indirectly nerf this champion, or how good he was at the time. Still an amazing champion. I feel like everything is speed and buff heavy right now. So I would even consider rebuilding my Arena Ugo. So Ugo is great in both areas, and as you can see, because it's AoE on both his A1 and his A2, the A3 isn't an attack. You have it out again. That's what made it good for stun set in Arena. Makes it good to try to land the hex debuff You could also probably put one in a provoke set if you needed an extra provoker. So that's why I built 2 Mighty Ukos, and that's typically why you would do that on the legendary champions. And he was just so good at the time. He has been power crept a little bit out of the game. Now, the other 2 that I've done, obviously, when you get Prince Kymar, and I've stripped gear off of this one, but Prince Kymar is one that's just so good, right? What makes him so good is he has the ability to reset and help speed up runs. Traditionally, you see this in like a Seer comp where Seer just nukes the crap out of the waves and bosses to speed it up. You know, a Prince Kymar and a Seer together with a Lydia that sets up the decreased defense in the weekend with the reset can kind of clear the waves in like 15 seconds. It's kind of insane. Now, I did build 2 of them. I will say my first one is booked. My second one is not booked. And in fact, I haven't used my second one all that much. But I did build out a second one for just the fact of speed tuning it, right? And I did not book this champion. So potentially, if you just needed 1 reset, you could use a Kymar that's unbooked. So that's another little tip that I'll just say. Again, we talked about the books earlier, but possibly consider building a second one and not necessarily booking it, especially when it comes to speed tuning, right? So again, we talked about arena versus other areas, bosses, Hydra mechanics, things like that. Second Kymar potentially can help you in like Doom Tower waves or something like that, where you wouldn't necessarily have to book him, but you needed a certain speed tune, where your primary one that's doing the bulk of the work has a different speed tune. Be something to consider. And then the final one that I really ever did, the Helicath here. And the reason why I did the Helicath, so the first one was the OG one. This is my first actual fusion, and because when he came out into the game, and this would have been in 2022, everyone was like, he's a must go get because he brings the block damage or the block damage buff, and he made his way into a whole wave of clan boss teams. And in fact, I still have that team as my backup team, and you probably won't be able to see it, although I do have a key. But this is what I've been doing more recently, but I do have this crazily speed tuned team that used, and again, this is my 2022 team. After I got the Helicath, I got lucky and pulled the Brogni. That YouTube short is hilarious, but we use, again, the Farrakhan the Fat, the Annex, and the Frozen Banshee. And again, we every now and then we get the, hey, you got to beat the clan boss with the rare team. So I will throw this team in, but it has a specific speed tune, and the speed tune on the Helicath was 248. And again, the speed tune is what mattered more than necessarily his damage output. And you can see that I have completely stripped my second one out. And by the way, I did book both on this. So really, I've only built three legendaries: Helicath, the Ukos, and I don't use them. And that's, I guess, what I was saying is be wary if you're thinking about doing this, especially if you're putting a book on the champion. But there are just some champions that are good enough to make this work. Now, why did I build the second one? I built this one specifically for PvP. So that's kind of it in summary. I do appreciate you watching this video. I will say epics are where it's at because they allow the epic empowerment, and epic books are just easier to come by. Upgrade skill, yeah, I'm sitting on 792 epic books. Don't judge me on my legendary books. I have FOMO, and I always want to make sure I put the legendary books on the champions when I need them at the time, right? So I will potentially do books when I need to do the books. And then the epics, you can build out as many epics as you want. If this is your first year playing the game, you're probably going to be building out more epics. We talked about that as well. Excuse me, I say epics. The rares. Epics, because you can empower them and they can help you out in these niche areas of the game like Cursed City, Faction Wars Hard. Absolutely consider doing those, and books are a lot easier to come by. You may not feel that again if you're in for your first year of the game, but you'll eventually get more epic books than you can actually use if you play the game for as long as I have. And then legendaries, be extremely selective, and feel free to not necessarily book the champion. And again, just consider where you want to use the different champions. And a build for PvP is going to be completely different potentially for a build for, say, Hydra in those examples like we talked about. But that being said, hopefully someone out there finds this very helpful. If they've considered, oh man, this champion's really good, but I'd really like to use them there. Those are my thoughts and why I ever did it. Keep in mind, you will get power crept out of being able to use some of those champions. And I knew at the end of that video, I was not remembering something right. 2 Teodors, the Savant, because Teodor is that amazing. Now, I will say they've added a lot more poison activators to the game since Theodore first came out, but Theodore is amazing and he can solo content by himself. He's got the with the regeneration and immortal for this one, and then I just built a second one with like just good stats needed. Now I will run my spider just to see, and we built this after RTAC came out, and spider hard. Where are you at? There you are for 40. Here it is. So yeah, we mentioned this earlier. So I do use one cold heart, and that's to bring the last spiders down. So cold heart's the fastest on the team. Then it goes to Tomb Drench to land the irresistible or place the irresistible burns, and then TO1, TO2, and then RTAC closes up the shop in 5 turns, done and done. But the sorting, when you have different tags on the different champions, that means something to you, I guess. They kind of, I don't know, move them around in the source. So I can't believe I almost forgot this one, but here you go. Don't blink and you'll miss it. But yeah, double Theodore. Champions that activate now. So there's stocked, which is a this faction. There it is. 5 turns, 11 seconds, done and done. But anyway, double Theodore for the activations. You can pull stuff off like that. So obviously we built a duplicate on that. So I think that's all of them. So that being said, like, subscribe, do all the things. Thank you so much. Zero Brew out. Bye.